Good afternoon, folks. You are listening to Radio Robin Hood. This is Conversation Oasis coming to you from Kasviskeidas restaurant every week. Today we are gonna have a bit of a special edition because we have special guests here. All of them are journalists from different countries and quite involved in human rights issues and other related stuff. We have Thierry Francis from Rwanda, and we have Aral Kakil from the Iraqi Kurdistan and Haneen Jamel from the Arabic part of Iraq. And we are going to talk about issues relating to journalism and the challenges and dangers related to journalism. And David Mawby here are local and also from Britain at the same time. Journalist will also make a contribution on this topic. So we get different perspectives on what it's like and what the conditions of working as a journalist might be. So we will start by addressing you guys a little bit. Terry, would you like to start off by telling us a little bit about yourself? Why did you come to Finland and what have you been doing in journalism? What's your area, so to say?
As you said, I come from Rwanda and I'm a journalist. In Rwanda, I was much more covering issues about business on a grassroots level. And then I was also in the sport department and radio. It's called, now it has changed the name in something that I don't really know very well. But before it was a radio, Voice of Africa, and
right.
then it's much more connected to a Muslim community.
Mm-hmm.
So there I was also covering issues regarding sport, and I was a soccer analyst at the same time. So I came to Finland in 2012. Then as I was an asylum seeker by that time. Then when I got my asylum, I started working with Radio Robin Hood.
Right.
And since then, I'm much more covering issues about human rights and democracy. Mostly, we started with East Africa, and then we went to Southern Africa at the beginning of this year.
Okay.
Briefly.
Yeah.
That's what I did and that's what I do.
That's fantastic to know. Aral, what about you? Why did you leave Kurdistan to come here? And what is your background in the journalist field?
I started as a journalist from 2005, after they arrested one of the famous journalists in Erbil, in my city, and just for reaction for doing that. I being a freelancer journalist, and I started working. That time I was in the high school. From that time I just started, and I worked in many different local and international organizations and press medias as a journalist and as a photographer, as a producer. Anyway, I left my country because they threatened me because and tried to kill me because I tried to make a film documentary about perception of the civilians in the war zone, in the battlefield. How the civilians be
Persecuted?
Yes, in the war zone, and actually exactly between Kurdish Peshmerga and ISIS and Iraqi army and Hashd al-Shabi is the part of the military of Iraq, or militia in the Iraq, Shi'i militia.
Right. And Haneen, you are one of the rare female journalists from that region. What kind of journalistic topics have you been covering during your job or during your work?
Well, I was working in local newspaper, and I was writing about women rights and children rights, and also some politics topics, which people don't really like to read about it, and don't like, especially women, talk about it. So yeah, I got threat because of that, but I left my home country because of Isis. They came to our city and they destroyed everything. So we didn't have other choice just to run away. I started working as a journalist when I started study. So 2008 I started as a journalist. Yeah, well, now I'm still working as a journalist with Vehra Yalanka magazine. I have a blog, and I have been participate in different panels in Finland, like Turku, Tampere, and Jyväskylä, different cities. Yeah.
Right. Aral, you have been talking before about the journalists, like how journalism works in Iraq. Would you like to elaborate a little bit on that right now?
Shortly, as a committee of protected journalists, they have some data about Iraq. For example, 186 journalists being killed from 92 until now. 112 journalists be targeted for murder, and 111 be murdered with impunity. And actually, from 92 until 2003, the year when they changed the regime of Saddam Hussein, we just have one killed journalist.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, during that time, we don't have media and press. Everything under control regime.
Right.
And after 2003, we have that big number and the dangerous zone, dangerous place and country. I think it's the second one after Afghanistan, or maybe the first one. Every time Iraq is in the top for every bad things in the world.
And one of them is that it's the most dangerous places for journalists, or one of the most dangerous places for journalists.
After that, journalists under ethnic sectarian and national pressure, and under the pressure of the political parties, between all of them, no one. At the end, you are one of them.
Right.
At the end, you are maybe Kurdish, Shiite, Sunni, or you are free journalist. Okay.
Yeah.
If you are free, you've been under control and under pressure for all of them.
Right.
Or if you are with someone, the other will be murder you or try to kill you, try to anything with you.
So something like free journalism doesn't really exist there, or very limited.
Because of that, we have that big number for killing and murdering journalists.
Yeah.
And I left my country from 2015.
Right.
During that time, just with me, 15 journalists just in Kurdistan regime left countries.
Right.
And after that, other 10 journalists, 25 journalists just last 2 years left Kurdistan. And most of them are kind of famous. Part of them working with the international media, and part of them is head of some local media in Kurdistan.
Right. How does this sound to you, Thierry? Is it familiar, but from another continent?
In the case of Rwanda or the region in general, I would say, like Iraq is journalism. We call it in the sense of being a journalist in a war zone.
Yeah.
So I would take it in that perspective.
Yeah.
So we have, when you look at Rwanda is a very, very small country, but like a get to Congo, say, and then Congo is like a failed state, and then we have also in the area Somalia issues, which is in the Horn of Africa. Somalia issues are related to terrorism, related to these pirates that have been in the media most of the time. And then we have other issues, but not only in zone war, but also in some political conflicts, like what is happening now in Kenya or in Uganda, in Burundi.
Yeah.
And Rwanda is like in that kind of entourage in the area.
Right.
So, as a journalist from Rwanda, I look not only Rwanda as a country which doesn't have those kind of issues like connected to political conflicts or connected to war zones, but a country which is inside the same area.
What
So
exactly do you mean?
What I mean is that being a journalist from Rwanda, we are affected with what is happening also
Around you.
Rwanda.
Right.
So we also have issues that are related to now our country, the history. You can name them like colonization, like any other countries which has gone through these kind of problems, but also wars that had happened before connected to colonization. In Rwanda we had a genocide, and we have so many issues related to the genocide. And then Rwanda has a particular issue with journalism in general, because during the genocide, media had a very strong role during the genocide.
Right. How?
We had most discussed point one radio, which is Radio de Mille Collines, Radio Télévision de Mille Collines, and then we had another newspaper, Kangura. Both of them were helping during the genocide, telling people what to do, where to do it, and how to do it.
Oh.
So they
Tutsi, those.
Tutsi. They participated in the genocide as active journalists from those radio.
Right.
Like active.
So they promoted hatred.
They promoted hatred.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, David, how does all of this sound to you, like as a veteran in journalism, but
Well, I just
in peaceful countries?
I
so
just
far?
like to recap that. I mean, something like 800,000 ethnic Tutsis and moderate Tutsi were massacred in 100 days, while the world just looked on and did nothing. And I've got a question actually before I make any comment to Thierry, is that since then, what role has the media played in the long road of reconciliation in your country?
800 is said, but
think it was
those
more.
are figures that can also be challenged.
Yes, I'm sure they
because,
can. Yes.
because in my knowledge, they can even go more than million.
Yeah.
And we are talking about people who are killed, but
Yes.
we're not talking after the genocide. What happened in Rwanda? We had like almost 2 to 3 million people who were in custody, and if you look at the statistics, Rwanda was 9 million by that time.
Yeah.
And then we had more than 2 million who went in exile, and then another inflow of people who came back
Yeah.
from exile in Rwanda. So the situation was very complicated, not only for the media, but also for the rest of society.
Yeah.
So what happened on the side of the media is that it was a very hard situation to reconstruct and to rebuild trust between the media and the community, the media and the leadership and people who are involved with policymakers. Why? Because of the role of the media during the genocide. So we had tough time until today to trust each other, and it's tough. So the media, the role of the media during that time was very important, because the media also participated in informing people. For example, during the time post-genocide, what is happening, how people are participating in these reconciliation systems, and how the justice is working on the cases. All these things were involving media anyhow. But the most important is how the media itself rebuild, because maybe we'll have even this issue in common with these other countries in which they're still in the war. There is, when a war comes, you get a lot of personnel in the media killed, and you expect more to come in the business. And the problem is, how would you educate the newcomer to keep up with the standard of the media at that time? In my experience in Rwanda, that was the most tough thing, because we had many students graduated from the School of the Media coming to do the job as a journalist, but in which kind of environment? And this has, the environment was, when you look at the post-genocide, people are scared, people do not trust the media, the government doesn't open the doors to freedom of speech.
Is that the case now, that there is no freedom of speech really in Rwanda, and that the media is gagged, so to say?
Yeah, that's where I was trying to lead, because we have few who are coming from the School of Journalists and who knows a little bit about the ethic, and how the journalist is doing, and we have others who didn't go for the School of Journalists, who really don't know how the ethic goes. And then that mixture is giving issues on how journalism should be done in Rwanda.
Dear listeners, you are listening to Radio Robin Hood. This is Conversation Oasis, a weekly free-floating conversation program coming to you every week from Kasviskeidas restaurant here in the city center of Turku. Today we are covering the issue, or discussing the issue of journalism and the challenges in war-torn and not so democratic regimes, how journalists face different kinds of threats and challenges in keeping up a good journalistic standard. I am your host, Nana Blomqvist, and with me today I have Hanin Jamil, Aral Kakil, and Thierry Francis, and our veteran that is usually our host as well, David Mawby. We will continue on the issue of keeping a good standard in a war-torn or fascist, or not, in other ways not so democratic states. How can we keep a good journalistic, or how can we face these challenges of keeping a good journalistic standards when there is not good basis for it? There is mistrust from the people in the media. There are death threats and other things that where the infrastructure has gotten torn down. Aral and Hanin, what do you think about this? How do you think you can how to face the challenges of keeping a journalistic standard in circumstances that the three of you here that came here as asylum seekers because you were threatened because you were journalists? How would you want to address the issues of how difficult that job is under those kinds of circumstances? Hanin, maybe if you want to start up with what exactly was things you couldn't do that you wanted to write about but you couldn't.
Well, I want to say that being a journalist in Iraq it's mean that you choose the danger work or job, especially if you are a woman. We are living in society where there is men so powerful, and women are a bit voiceless, especially in small cities where I was. So I choose to have this big challenge to be a journalist in a small city. I couldn't really write about what I want. I wrote maybe 3 or 4 articles about women's rights and children's rights. And I got threatened because of that kind of writing. People don't want to hear you. People don't want women to understand their rights. We are equal. I grown up in let's say good family who they really were explain that women and men are equal.
Right.
But when I want to write about that, I felt like I shocked. I lived in family different than the society where I am.
Right.
So yeah. writing about women's rights, something so important for me.
Yes.
And I want to write about it. But when I got through it, I decided to quit writing at all, because of course I want to save myself, my life. It's
Of course.
yeah. Even though I was thinking that no, there is message I have to deliver for this society, but it's a really big risk. I couldn't stand it alone. We moved to another city because this kind of threats and
Right.
yeah.
And in your blog, you have also mentioned these kinds of issues, that a female journalist in Iraq is not looked good upon. Why is that, or how does this logic work, where a woman, especially a woman, is targeted for scorn as a journalist?
Well, we were only 5 women who they are study journalists in my college.
Yeah.
People don't really allow their daughters to go and study journalism. They think it's not good women to be in TV or radio, that people will see her like not so good girl,
Yeah.
a bit bad. I also applied one time for a job in TV station.
Okay.
And I was so excited, like they are paying good and I will be on TV and like it's my dream will be true.
Yeah.
So yeah, I talked with my dad and he said, yes, of course you have to go. But then my brother said, no, you cannot work at TV station. People will think bad about you and about us, and you will put our family in very bad like looking. And I was, oh my God, I was crying a lot, like I really cried, I want this job.
Yeah.
And my dad was understand that, but then my brother said no, then I couldn't get that job.
Right.
Could I just ask you one question?
Yeah.
Has the situation for women journalists in Iraq become worse since the deposing of Saddam Hussein? Because we're under the impression in the West that Hussein ran, although it was a dictatorship, it was a secular dictatorship. Now, of course, you have the influence of Islam in Iraq. Is it worse now or better?
Actually, I guess a bit worse now. Like even people who they are working there, they know that other people will think that they are not good girls and no one want to get married with them. But yeah,
Their honor will somehow be tainted
yes.
by this, or in people's
Actually,
eyes.
there is a lot of stories like there is the owners try to harass the women or the journalists who they are working there.
Yeah.
So because of that kind of stories, people think like, yeah, maybe they accept that kind, so they are bad, and
Exactly.
yeah.
I would like also to intervene and to make a little bit comment about this question. Not only looking at the perspective on what is happening in Iraq, but maybe also in the media, especially in these developing countries, the way we get to the information as men journalists is completely different ways of how women will get to that information, because most of the time women, they will get exposed because people we're dealing with are male dominated,
Yeah.
and it's not easy to get that.
Like
Even
women don't access the arenas where the information is.
A male journalist can pick up the phone and say, I want to know this.
Yes.
In Finland. A female journalist can do the same in Finland and will get exactly the same information.
Yes.
But of course, that's not the case
In other
outside Europe.
countries.
No, yeah.
Aral, do you have any particular challenges from your perspective? You were covering mostly things in Iraqi Kurdistan, or were you covering things also outside?
Actually, I mean, Iraqi Kurdistan, Syrian Kurdistan, Turkish Kurdistan, and Arabic part of Iraq, like in Baghdad, in Mosul,
Right.
and Diyala.
So you were
Yeah.
covering quite large areas.
We can say yes.
What were the topics you were focusing on?
Actually, politics, and mostly I just worked as a politics side, and again like something about society, economic, and suddenly when I came here, I started to be a sport photographer, from the war journalist to sport photographer, because there's not any other chance, because I cannot speak Finnish. But one thing, when you ask them, I just want to say something shortly. The main reason he just started, and she talked something else. What's the main reason? It's colonialism. After that, it's capitalism, and right now it's.
You can ask Hanin in Arabic the word, and she will give you the English one.
Liberalism, actually. Liberalism for us, not for you. For us is a new colonialism plus capitalism, not for you. I talk about ourselves.
Some people, they call it neo-colonialism.
Exactly, it's neo-colonialism, and actually
market slavery for everyone.
Yeah.
If you want to solve those problems, you should go back to the people of own places. And for example, colonialism made planet Iraq as a country, but that time was just Arabic and Kurdi.
Right.
When new colonialism came back to Iraq, made Shi'i, Sunni, Kurdi, Yazidi, Muslim, Turkmen, everything.
Right.
Hutu, Tutsi, everything.
Even Hutu, Tutsi, they made by Europeans.
It polarizes the societies to the extreme. And for this time you will hear us again next week. We'll continue on the topic of journalism with the same guests. But for now we have to kind of let you wait for a week. With me in the studio today I have had Hanin Jamel, Aral Kakil, and Terry Francis and David Mawby, all of whom are journalists and be working with that for quite some time. I am your host, Nana Blomqvist, and you will hear us again next week.